r/AskReddit by Redmond Dtes. People who accidentally ruin someone's life without meaning to. What happened, and how do you feel about it now? Coworker would always talk about how Jessica and I were going to go here, or Jesse and I went there, or Jess and I got up to this, or that or the other. One day I ran into him and his wife in the wild. He introduced her only as my wife. I, of course, said, "Oh Jessica. It's nice to meet you. I've heard so much about you." Gentle reader, his wife's name was not Jessica. I feel nothing about it. He shouldn't have been cheating on his wife. But if was going to, he shouldn't have spent years telling me about Jessica, then introduce his wife only as my wife. I do photography and videography at weddings. This particular wedding, half the guests spoke a language I'm not fluent in, and it was before AI translations existed. The mother of the bride said something derogatory about the groom's mom in her native language, and I included it in their video because she was smiling when she said it. Turns out the groom's mom spoke multiple languages. I accidentally stumbled upon a 2.5 million Ponzi scheme when I was in finance. The person involved wound up committing suicide once the feds got involved. Many years ago I was going to the track, harness races, and I asked a guy Alan if he wanted to tag along. He was 17 I think. He'd never even seen a horse before. Each race I would tell him what I thought, and he'd either bet $2 or skip the race. $2 was important to him. Then in a late race there was a horse named Minyar Mitzvah. He got all excited. A Jewish horse. I got to bet him. The horse was awful, and I told him so. Went off at 30-1. This was early winter and there was a heavy fog obscuring the far side of the track. Off they go and disappear into the fog. Even the announcer is saying, "Your guess is as good as mine." They're in the fog for a long time, and finally the first horse emerges, alone. We're waiting for the rest of the pack, which eventually the field emerges, but the lead horse is way out in front. Who knows what happened in that fog? We can now see the colors, and sure enough it's Minyar Mitzvah. It cruises home, and Alan reveals that he bet $10. So now this kid suddenly has more money than he'd ever seen in his life. His brain is doing cartwheels. He was hooked. From that day on he became a degenerate gambler, always chasing that high. Years later he told me, "I can't stop. Even if you gave me $1 million I'd be broke in a year." All because of a Jewish horse, and me casually asking him if wanted to tag along. Nothing worse than winning the first time you gamble. Temporarily. I was looking after my friend's apartment while they were on vacation. There was building work outside, and someone hit the downpipe of the toilet, which broke the ceramic toilet bowl, flooding the bathroom. I cleaned it all up, then complained to the building management, and asked for the toilet to be replaced before they got back, which set off a series of events that led to them being evicted. It turned out they were illegally subletting without knowing it. I felt like absolute shit at the time, but they ended up moving back to Australia because of it, and living a good life there, so I'm okay with it now. I work in human resources, and way back, when I was new and naive, I had a home address change request for an employee come across my desk. I couldn't read the handwriting, and wanted to be sure I put in the correct new address, so I called their house, and their wife answered. I asked her about it, and much to my surprise she said, "What the hell are you talking about?" The employee came up to me a few days later and said, "I didn't tell her I was moving out yet." My good friend was scheduled to have surgery when it was discovered she had an aneurysm. I was with her at the hospital with her family, and right before she was taken away, she handed me her phone and said she wanted me to keep it until she was in recovery. She ended up dying on the table. She was a heavy smoker for 20+ years, and that doctor couldn't find any good tissue to graft to save her. I turned her phone back on and handed it to her husband. It was maybe 24 hours after her death when we discovered that she had been having an affair for years, had been embezzling money from the business to provide for her boyfriend, and signed over a car to him that he was supposedly still paying for. It broke all of us, and I still have unresolved feelings towards her for putting me in that position. I think she knew I would figure it out and expected me to cover for her. I love and miss you, Amy, but you're a piece of shit for doing that to your family. I caught my brother-in-law assaulting his 9-year-old daughter. He killed himself afterwards to avoid going to jail. I have no regrets. He had been assaulting her since she was 5 years old. His own daughter. She will be 18 this year. Her life is 100 times better with him gone. I'm grateful I caught him, because we wouldn't have known otherwise, because he threatened her and her brothers into silence. I was only 21 years old at the time of catching him. It was a very traumatic thing to witness, let alone her experiencing it, but she is safe, and that is all that matters to me. I was working for a federal program and had a boss who hired her sister without disclosing to higher ups that it was her sister, a disclosure required by the program. Boss then paid the sister twice the usual rate for the job, and sister was logging a lot of extra work hours that she hadn't actually been working. I only found out because my boss insisted I needed to do the timesheet inputs for her because she couldn't be bothered. Boss told me to take any questions to boss's boss and left for the day. I noticed the discrepancy immediately and went to boss's boss to let them know there was an issue with time tracking versus scheduling on her sister's timesheet and wanted to know what I should do. The sister thing was news to boss's boss, and then the discrepancy triggered an investigation that uncovered a whole bunch of other misuse of government funding. Boss lost her job, the FBI got involved, and boss eventually ended up with some massive fines and jail time. Knowing what I know now, I would accidentally report her again. I suggested a kid I knew at school to consider joining the military and using the GI Bill later in life after he wasn't able to get accepted to a college or university. He thought it was a fantastic idea, so he went for it. Dude's convoy hit an improvised explosive device on his first deployment. He survived, but has a litany of health problems. I feel terrible for suggesting it. I intervened when my close friends were suicidal, and they stopped being friends with me. It ruined their lives at the time. Many years later, they're alive and seem to have a good life and got married. I wasn't invited to the weddings. I tell myself it was worth it, because it was the right thing to do, and at least they're alive. He was screwing around at work, never getting stuff done, always calling out for BS reasons, etc. I ended up stuck doing all his work, so once when he called out for a splitting puking migraine, then posted on Facebook about being at a concert, I marked. They fired him a few weeks later, and since his wife refused to work, they ended up losing their house. Not directly, but a friend came to me once to casually ask me about another friend and how they were handling their new job. The friend with the new job had been ecstatic because it was a huge opportunity for their career in an oversaturated field. It was essentially their big break. I told the first friend that they were loving it and handling it just fine, and they asked if they were like stressed or anything. I offhandedly said something about them having friction with one of their coworkers, but that they were doing fine with it. What I didn't know is that friend asking me these questions was friends with the coworker and used what I told that friend to help get my friend fired for creating a toxic work environment. Not only was it very high school drama, but it ruined the trajectory of my friend's career completely, and they are still struggling today to find meaningful employment, despite this happening 4 years ago. Do you still talk with that friend? That's beyond messed up. I still talk to the friend whose life I accidentally ruined after a period of us not talking, because they originally thought I did it intentionally. I didn't, and don't have any desire to ruin anyone's life. I've since apologized to them for being careless with my words. I don't speak to the other friend anymore though. We parted ways shortly after that for obvious reasons, because I didn't appreciate being used like that, but it was really messed up because they sounded genuinely concerned and caring about it all. Coworker went on a road trip to Seattle. I jokingly asked him to bring back some heroin. I was not a user and didn't actually want any, it was clearly a joke. Well, the day that he's supposed to be back, he calls me and says he's running late and might not be there on time. So, I don't get concerned when he's not in at his scheduled time. An hour late, and I call him again, no answer. He doesn't come in that night. Calls the next day. He was speeding excessively to get to work, still in another state, and got pulled over. He had some weed in the car, just a personal amount, but still not great. The problem was he had a very small amount of tar heroin he was bringing me back as a joke. That joke ruined his life. He had to move to that state in hopes of avoiding a charge for transporting drugs over state lines. Since he had two separate kinds of drugs, they pinned a dealing charge on him. It didn't end up in jail time, but long probation, and he had to live in a shitty place for years. I apologized to him and felt terrible. He never once blamed me or had any animosity. He knew it was his choice and that he had fucked up. I still felt bad about it. One does not locate, purchase, possess, and transport black tar heroin as a joke, my friend. Your conscience should rest easy. Almost years back, working at a hardware store, I knocked a full pallet of lime of a 20-foot high shelf. Came within inches of killing a person standing there. I hopped off the forklift grumbling about the mess I would have to clean up, and saw the person standing there. Completely unharmed, but still white as a sheet, pupils dilated. I repeatedly apologized, but my words never registered. They just walked away and left the store. I was sexually assaulted by another student living in my dorm during my first year of university. I spoke out about it, which led to 2 other women coming forward with similar experiences. A couple of months later, administration discovered he was growing drugs in his room. This was grounds for being kicked out of residence. The next I heard about this guy was a couple of years later, when an acquaintance had let me know he had gotten expelled from school, got mixed up with bad gambling, and committed suicide. I feel fine, because I did nothing but tell the truth. I was pissed a kid in 5th grade kept copying off my tests, so I went and told the teacher, and after I bombed a test on purpose, and they compared answers, it was determined that kid was indeed copying off me. The kid was tested, and it was determined they were illiterate, and they were made to go back a grade. I don't really feel bad, because fuck that guy, and hopefully he knows how to read now. You probably did him a favor. Adult illiteracy is very much a real thing, and usually they hide it through school, by cheating just like that. We kept having boxes of parts lost when they were shipped to customers and manufacturers, about 20 grand worth. I was in charge of operations, so I had to figure it out and keep it quiet, since we didn't know if it was one of our employees or not. I installed a GPS tracker in a box and had to ship it like 5 times back and forth between 2 of our locations until I finally got it figured out. It was an orchestration between one of our employees and a FedEx driver. Long story short, our HR fired our employer and alerted FedEx, who did the same. Our company did not press any civil charges, and the DA declined to prosecute because the evidence was very thin. I thought nothing of it for about 2 years, but then a fellow employee linked me to a news article that the former FedEx employee had recently died from a drug overdose while homeless. I don't know if my solving our theft problem directly caused it, but I'm sure it contributed to their downward spiral. I almost started a forest fire by accident once. I was burning a burn pile, and I didn't take enough safety measures. The wind started gusting, which started the grass around it on fire. I kept putting it out, and the wind would gust again, igniting it all, over and over. I rushed to the house, called the fire department on myself, and rushed back outside with hoses connecting many together to reach the fire. I got the fire put out after about half an acre burned. The fire department came after it was out. It would have reached the trees before they got there. I almost caused a major fire. I felt terrible about it, of course. My hands were blistered from trying to put it out with a shovel over and over. The grass was green, but there was dead dry grass under it. Combined with the wind, it was just a nightmare. My childhood best friend and I were making a silly plan to sneak out of my room at night. We tied some sheets together to make a rope movie style and lowered it out of my 3rd floor bedroom window. She volunteered to go first, and after she was fully outside of my window dangling in the air, the knots came loose. I watched her fall all the way down in slow motion and bounce off my water heater onto the grass. I ran outside, fully expecting her to be unconscious or worse. But she was unexpectedly fine and already up and walking towards my front door. We swore ourselves to secrecy about this moment and never told anybody what happened because we were so embarrassed. It became something we joked about for a while after we did a lot of dumb or dangerous things as kids, lol. Over the years we've grown apart, and now as adults she's developed a lot of mental challenges she didn't have before. Memory issues, social skills, overall executive functioning. I think about her often, and I can't help but suspect her falling out of my window had something to do with it. I told my girlfriend we should stop by Starbucks on our way to my job, and I got her a tea for her sore throat. The lid came off, and she spilled it all over herself. 2 weeks hospitalized, skin graft surgery, and I'm of zero use to her. She's probably going to have permanent scarring. This isn't my story, but an old co-worker. And it's timely, because it's September 11th today. Said ex-co-worker was a manager at a different company, and at the time, managed a team member who was not cutting it. He gave her lots of chances and opportunities, but was failing miserably at the job. He made the decision to fire her. She was terribly upset, loved the job and company. Begged him to stay. He had to say no. Fast forward a few weeks later, she gets a new job opportunity across the country. Needs to fly out for the interview. She was on one of the planes that hit the Twin Towers, on her way to that interview. He obviously had no control over any of this, but felt deep regret for a long time. What if he waited just a few more weeks to fire her? Delayed her search for a new job, and then she wouldn't have been on that plane. That story always sticks with me. I feel like, if I hadn't moved out of the state, my mom wouldn't have overdosed. And it might even be true, but my life is good now, and there's no way I could have stayed there anymore. But that's a guilt I've lived with for 10 years. Started dating my therapist, one of her friends found out. Got very angry at her, we were broken up by then, but she still reported her to her professional order. Now she's losing her license, won't be able to practice anymore. Oh man, I have one. When I was like 19, I was riding a bicycle to work and got hit by a landscaping truck pulling out of a gas station. The two guys were so apologetic, helped me up, checked out the bike, offered to give me a ride, everything. Nice guys, and I was okay, just stunned really. Well, some lady in the parking lot called the police. Turns out they didn't have documents. Cops arrested them both and impounded the truck. And then gave me a ticket for riding my bike wrong. I still feel bad cause if I had just got my shit together faster and left, they could have left before the cops got there and ruined their shit. Total time was less than 5 minutes from hit to cops. They only show up that fast when you don't want them, I guess. I don't think it was his life, but it cost him a job. Co-worker said he was going off for bereavement, saying a relative passed away. The next day he was off, and I worked directly with his sister-in-law and she wasn't off. I offered condolences. She asked what the F I was talking about. I told her about the relative. She got on her phone texting and said nobody died. I thought, oh shit, and walked away. It started a big investigation because company pays you for bereavement days. He got fired for fraud. That's all folks. Thank you for watching. If you like videos like this one, why not like and subscribe for more. Have a nice evening.